What did you get out of the shoot arounds and talking to the coaches as you get ready for today?
Kirk, everybody that thinks of June 21st as being the summer equinox or whatever, it's the longest day of the year, has never come to an NCAA tournament site. And spent 10 hours watching practice and then done 4 games the next day. You get little bits and pieces, like watching Texas Tech's practice yesterday, for instance, was amazing. Chris Beard, who's one of the finalists for Coach of the Year, and he's had a fabulous season. Everything they do in practice is so regimented. And apparently they do it all the time that way. And they had different music for different spots on the floor. They had a lot of fun. They walk arm in arm from one end of the court to the other, saying the word together, together, together. That's been their theme. So things like that, that you don't normally see when you go to a practice or when you do a regular season game, I guess. So there's a little touch of that. You get a chance to meet some of the kids that you haven't seen play. Northern Kentucky's got the player of the year in their conference, and Drew McDonald, who is not a guy that gets off the bus and you go, wow, we got to look out for him. But he's a walking double-double, and he's been great for that program because he's from that part of the country, and he's the face of Northern Kentucky. Just things like that, I guess. You get little pieces from the coaches on what they expect and what their preparation is as far as how they're going to defend certain teams, that kind of thing. So it's an interesting day. It's a long day, and actually this one's more fun than the practices are.
Brett, for people who don't understand that you guys have 4 games today, like how do you, first of all, prepare yourself to call 4 games? And is there any strategies? Is it water breaks? Is it drinking a little bit of tea? How do you get through a day like today?
They used to tell us back when I was CBS the first time. They said if you have a long enough break between games 2 and 3, actually go and change your shirt and tie and pretend it's a whole nother day. Wow. I tried that the first year I did it. It didn't have any effect on me at all. So, we've got the honey and the tea back in the green room, and our people are well prepared. 5-Hour Energy, I hate to give them a plug for nothing, but I'll give them a plug because there'll be some of that involved today too. A lot of the preparation was done as soon as you find out your bracket on Sunday night. When they let us know where you're going, you immediately start working. And Monday and Tuesday were heavy preparation days on my own before I got to Tulsa on Wednesday. So, a lot of the hay's in the barn, I think, before you get here. Then you try to pick up the little nuances from the practices and all that yesterday. But you're so inundated. Back in the day, it was like you had game notes, or the SID put out a booklet, coming into the tournament, and that was kind of what you had. We have so many emails from so many different directions and so many different stat lines and all of that kind of stuff that I just went through right before you called. I went through my phone and I said, okay, here's 20 emails I'm getting rid of right now, because if I'm not ready, I'm never going to be, and it's not going to do my phone any good. So I got rid of most of my stuff just now, except what's in front of me.
CBS Sports NCAA broadcaster Brad Nessler joining the Rich Eisen show. Kirk Morrison here filling in for Rich. But Brad, how much of yesterday's games did you get a chance to watch? Because obviously some big storylines coming out of those games, and you got not necessarily upsets, but you had some good victories, teams that we're still learning about. How much do you get a chance to actually follow the tournament when you've got your own games ahead of you?
Well, between your phones and your iPads, and Jimmy Jackson had his computer on out here while we were watching practice, and then back in the green room we had another game going on, and then everybody's on their phone every 5 minutes, either checking their brackets or checking the scores, whatever. So we caught what we could. I think a star is made in every region, and John Moran, I heard the highlights of him, and he went off, and everybody kind of expected that. I don't know if they expected a triple-double and 16 assists, but it's kind of jaw-dropping what some of the kids do. And Fletcher McGee, I don't know that much about Walker because they're not in my region, but watching those guys shoot threes yesterday was entertaining. And I think somebody else hit 16 threes yesterday, Baylor maybe, against Syracuse, something like that, which is pretty amazing. That's a way to kill the Syracuse zone. So we watch as much as we can while we're trying to prepare for our own region. And sometimes we say, you know what, I'm not going to pay any attention to any other region because I have too much on my plate right here. And then inevitably you turn around and you're watching TV. And we went to a conference. We have a big conference room set up at the hotel. We immediately went from all our practices, went back there, turned on the TV, had a production meeting, turned on the TV, and started watching ball. So you catch as much as you can when you have the chance. But it's pretty important to kind of keep focused here. But we do have a lot of fun watching ball in the other regions, the other broadcast teams.
You know, Brad, you've called some great games, whether it's college football, college basketball. But when you have these great games going on or great individual performances, for me, my question to you is, how do you stay so calm in the moment? Or how do announcers try to stay calm in that moment when you look at, you mentioned Ja Morant yesterday, and even Fletcher McGee, when guys are having unbelievable performances, you kind of almost want to get overly excited for what they're doing.
Yeah, I do. I'm calm when it's just up and down the floor and it's the first half of a game. But I have always loved shooters, and so watching that and watching Fletcher McGee, I was like, man, I wish I was doing that game. Because when somebody starts raining threes, I don't know how many hit 7 or whatever, and I know he went over 500 for his career. But we've got some of those kind of guys in this region here. Just about every game we have, we've got the player of the year in their league. So you expect you're going to have a star in just about every matchup. But when somebody all of a sudden goes for 30 or gets really hot and just starts draining threes, that's when I have a blast. So you kind of save it for the moments. If you got a bunch of guys that have 12 points, it's not that big a deal. But when you got a star out there and you can tell the star's going to start shining, that's when you get excited. And I just get excited just like any other fan.
CBS Sports' Brad Nessler joining the program. Arizona State, the number 11 seed in your region, taking on Buffalo. We know Bobby Hurley, the former coach at Buffalo.
Yep.
How is that storyline kind of playing out so far? I know it's a little, I won't call it tension, but obviously some familiar faces going up against each other.
Yeah, and you got Dave Nader's first job after being a high school coach in Michigan for a long time, and so they're good friends, and that's just the way it is sometimes. I don't know if that bracket was set up because Arizona State had to play their way in the first 4, so I guess everybody looked at that and said that would be intriguing. And we looked at it, obviously, it's kind of going to be our open, to be honest with you, when you watch the game, just because that's a fun fact. And I think, Bobby had to work really hard. They went through the Pac-12 tournament, got beat by Oregon, and then had to travel to Dayton, a long trip, actually go home, then go to Dayton, and then come here. They got here at 4:30 yesterday morning or something, the flight, and Jim Jackson was on the charter with him to get here, one of my partners doing the game. So it's been a heck of a journey, and, Bobby got a technical call the other night. I did the game when they played Arizona, and he was all fired up on that one, too. So we were teasing him about keeping his cool, and he said, I'm going to be really cool. And I said, yeah, you told me that against Arizona, and you told me that in the first-round game. So I used to do his games when he was at Duke. So anytime I've got a connection like that, it's interesting television, and the matchup with his former team in Buffalo will be just like that.
Brad, we've already updated our brackets. Did you fill out a bracket for this one? Did you kind of keep it to the side and look at it at the end, or you just kind of leave that to your colleagues?
I always tell myself I'm not going to fill one out, but I've got some high school buddies that are on my case constantly, and they're like, you got to fill one out. So, yeah, I did. And I didn't do very well in day one, I'll tell you that much. So I might as well burn mine right now because it's not going to matter when it all comes to an end in Minneapolis.
Brad Nessler, CBS Sports NCAA broadcaster, joining us here on the Rich Eisen Show. Kirk Morrison filling in for Rich. A couple more minutes before I let you go because I know you got a long day ahead, Brad. But kind of tell me about the environment there in Oklahoma and Tulsa, just because a lot of times people don't understand that these are 8 different fan bases all coming together, and sometimes you get actually other schools pulling for another school. So how do you kind of handle the momentum swing of so many different people coming together for this tournament?
It's different. Last year I was in Wichita and Kansas was there as the top seed, and so the place was jammed. And even the practice sessions was crazy. I mean, the arena was full. I quite frankly don't know what it's going to be like, Kurt, in the next hour before we tip off, or whatever time we tip off here. Northern Kentucky and Texas Tech are warming up right now, so it's getting a little bit noisier in here. I assume Texas Tech's going to have a fairly good contingent. I think they might be one of the closer drives, maybe Iowa State too. But some of the other fan bases, I don't know if it's going to be just basketball fans or if they travel well. It's an interesting thing to see, and you're right. They have a tendency, the fans of one team or another say, well, you know what, we don't want to play those guys, so we want them to get beat. So over the course of the day, you're going to hear some teams cheering for other teams when it's really not what colors they're wearing in the stand. It's different. It's just starting to fill up here. I can't really tell you until game one how it's going to be.
Brad, it's a different – I don't know how many groups of broadcasters there are for CBS for this entire tournament. But would you say that your group with Lavin, Jackson, and Washburn, are you guys the best dressed group, you think, of all the CBS broadcasters?
Well, when Jimmy Jackson joined the group, this year, that level just went up completely. Right. So, Jim just walked in too.
Tell Jim I said hello.
Nice about you on the Rich Eisen show. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. As soon as he arrived on the scene, automatically we went up a notch as far as look. I'll take that much for us.
Hey, well, look, we appreciate your time today, Brad. I know you guys got a lot of work to get done, but we will be watching, man. Good luck today, and have a great rest of the tournament.
You got it, Kirk. Thanks, man.
That's Brad Nessler. It's CBS broadcaster.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.